Hey guys, this has been 31Z, and this is going to be an update on my review of the Ontario Rat 3 and D2 steel. Note, this is not the Rat Colory version, the RC3, which is offered only in 1095 high carbon steel, which you can also get from Ontario, but it's the cheaper version for Ontario. The knife is about $100 from Rat Colory for the 1095 steel, and it's only about $60 for the 1095 version made by Ontario. Obviously, the finish is going to be better on the Rat Colored one, but that's just the difference in price. And the D2 version for Ontario is about $100. You can see my other video if you need any more additional information. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, I'm now living in a suburban area in Southern California, and I was happy to discover that there's this largely unpopulated area attached to my backyard, which is what you're looking at right now, kind of that unpopulated area. You see some houses, but those are far and few in between. It's basically like this large hilly area that has a bunch of animals and plants. So far, I've seen a bunch of lizards, salamanders, roadrunners, rabbits, and coyotes in this area. It's a pretty fun place to go when you don't feel like traveling or driving to a hiking trail or to a reserve. There's a bunch of trees back here that aren't cultivated or planted by anybody. They're just growing by themselves, and I don't know what kind of trees they are, but I don't think they're endangered or anything. They're not like an oak or a redwood, so I don't really have a problem with chopping some of them down, even though they're not dead. Some people may criticize that, but I don't think it really matters because there's a lot of them, and they seem to be growing up everywhere. So, okay, and okay, so I am going to move over to my tabletop now to talk about my use experience with the Rat 3. I actually took it out the other day and put it through some hard use. So, see you guys in a second. Hey guys, well, welcome back. So the other day, I took my Rat 3, which you see here. I took this out the other day when I was exploring this area, and I just wanted to see how well it'll hold up to cutting down some of the smaller trees. The trees that we're talking about are probably 5 to 6 inches in diameter, so they're not really that big. But then again, this is not a huge knife. It's only got about a 3-inch blade, as you can see. It's not it's not a chopping knife, and the handle is pretty small too. See, I always thought that this Rat 3 was a smaller knife, kind of a backup to a larger knife that can only handle tasks like making like shaving wood for kindling, and maybe using it to baton through smaller logs. Even though the grip on this knife is not really ideal for chopping because it is a little bit smaller. It's even for my small hands, it's kind of a small handle. But what I did was I attached this lanyard here in the back, you see, and it's got this little pewter skull, which is kind of nice. But something I've noticed is that I added this purely for aesthetic reasons, but I've noticed that when I'm chopping, at a tree or something, and my hand starts to slip, this actually helps me still have some grip on the knife even though my hand has slipped back. So it's a little bit of an extra, in addition to looking cool. Okay, let's talk about the edge I have on here. The edge, as it came from Rat Colory, was not great. Or sorry, the edge as it came from Ontario was not that great. I sharpened the edge to about 20 degrees on each side, which is about 40 degrees inclusive. Oh, and let's take a little tangent here and talk about my sharpening system. I have a DMT aligner system, and I bought an extra fine polishing stone that doesn't come with the kit, and I've been using the polishing stone for a while now. And at first, I was really happy because it gave the edge a very polished finish, and I thought that would help in cutting. Well, I know that it would help in cutting, but the problem was that the stone, even though it was made for the aligner system, was not perfectly, didn't fit the system. So what was happening was that the holder for the stone was flexing when you put the stone in. So you have to really hit it hard to get it in. And what I didn't realize was that it was actually flexing the stone, so that instead of being flat, it became like kind of a curve, right? And I didn't notice that at first, but I have been noticing that, when I'm sharpening and stuff, I can't get the edge quite that sharp. It always feels a little dull, even though, I start at rough, and I, move towards fine, and then I polish it, which really should give it a very, very good edge, but it wasn't doing that for some reason, and I was confused. But then now I realize why. It's because because the stone was curved like that, it was basically rounding out my edges when I'm sharpening. When I'm cutting at it like this, it's rounding the edge on both sides. So, but now that I use the other stones that came with the kit, it sharpens great. So that's a little bit of a aside. Anyways, I've since changed the angle on this knife to about 15 degrees on each side, which is about 30 degrees inclusive. I did this because the edge was so strong, and it held up really well to the chopping and batoning task that I put it through. I was hammering at these trees and batoning like this little knife like it wasn't even mine. Like I got it for review, just to try to destroy it. But when it came back, it was a little bit more dull than when it went out, but it wasn't that much more dull. It can still shave paper. So, and when I see that it can do that, that just tells me that this edge, it can actually stand up to a sharper edge, like a steeper edge. Because if it's getting damaged and bent, even when you have like a 20-degree edge, you're not gonna make it more steep, because it's gonna make it more susceptible to damage. But since it held up so well, I decided to put a little bit of a steeper angle on it. And a lot of people say that D2 steel is very brittle and it chips, but you know what? Even after bashing wood for about an hour, I didn't see any chips on here. So, and people say 1095, it's a good steel. I actually recently had some very bad experience with 1095 steel in one of the K-bar, the KBD1 specifically, but that's for another video. Also, the micarta handles held up really well, because even when they were soaking wet, full of tree juices, it still gave a good grip. So overall, I'm really starting to, this is pretty much becoming my favorite fixed blade, because this tech lock system works really well. I just slip it on my belt, and I don't even know it's there. I slip it into my belt into like kind of at the small of my back, so it's holding it tipped down, and it's really easy to access. I just pull it out and I put it back in, and I don't even know it's there. So it's been working out well for me, this tech lock system. The sheath is great. It keeps the blade dry. The blade was wet, full of juice when I put it in, but it didn't show any rusting, because there's vents at the bottom, and it keeps the whole inside of the sheath dry. However, I did dull the tip really bad, because when I was coming back, I saw a piece of hardened glass, I guess it was, on the ground that somebody had thrown out, and I tried to smash it with a tip. And what happened was that it dulled the tip completely. I mean, like, it was completely dull. It was like a pencil, like not a pencil, but the eraser end of a pencil. But what I did was, after I sharpened the knife to the 15 degrees, I actually sharpened the tip. I don't know if you can see this or not, because I don't have a great camera, but right now this tip is armor piercing sharp. It's awesome. So I really have this knife in a great condition right now. I mean, it's shaving sharp, but I still think it'll hold up pretty well to any outdoor tasks that I may put it through. Overall, great knife, and I would recommend buying this version, the D2 version, over the 1095 version made by Rat Cutlery, even though they say it's great. But I really have a problem paying $100 for a blade made in 1095 steel, which is a very cheap high carbon steel. Okay. Anyways, this is just an update on this knife, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.